So Silverstone marked the halfway point of the season, round 12 out of 24, with a 3-week gap now between the British Grand Prix and the next round in Belgium. It is the perfect time to go through our mid-season grades. Just like last season, I am going to be going through all the teams and all the drivers and giving them a school grade on this little blackboard here, from A star all the way down to F, depending on how they have performed in the opening half of this season. We're going to go from worst to first. We're going to go from the bottom of the Constructors' Championship, which team that is, in this case Alpine, all the way up to the top, being McLaren. I'm just going to give my thoughts quickly on how they've all got on. So, without further ado, let's dive in. So let's start with Alpine, bottom of the Constructors' Championship this season, after of course finishing 6th place last season. It's been a massive downturn in terms of the performance overall from the French outfit. They have been absolutely terrible so far this season. I don't think they have the worst car on the grid, to be honest with you, but they're clearly getting the least out of it. The fact that they have sunk to bottom of the pile overall is nothing short of embarrassing. They've had chaos behind the scenes with their driver situation, their team principal situation. Flavio Briatore has now took full control of that team. It's never a good sign when things like that happen. So operationally, Alpine are an absolute mess right now, and they're going to get a very bad grade from me. But what about the drivers? Well, we've got 3 drivers to grade here, because of course we started the season with Pierre Gasly and Jack Doohan. Now we have Gasly and also Colapinto as well. How do I think they've got on? Well, Gasly has been really impressive. All 19 of Alpine's points have been courtesy of the Frenchman's incredible performances. Even when the car doesn't look particularly good, he is always putting it up into Q3 and regularly scoring points as well. He has been seriously impressive. He is wasted on Alpine, to be perfectly honest. But both of the other drivers, I mean, usually when a driver gets sacked like Jack Doohan has, I normally give them an F because they failed, but I actually feel a little bit sorry for him in a sense. I don't think he was that terrible. Yes, disappointing for sure, but an F grade, I'm not so sure about that. Colapinto's come into the car now, and I don't think he's been that much better. I mean, very marginally, maybe a little bit, and I think in time he will improve, but honestly, going off his form right now, he is one of 2 drivers not to score any points so far this season, the other one of course being Doohan. So overall for me, Alpine are getting an F grade. I mean, they might well leave Formula 1 in the near future with how bad they've been. They're losing the Renault engines, of course. They're going towards Mercedes power next year. That team is an absolute basket case. Gasly, I've given a B. Like I said, he's been really impressive. You can make a case for him getting an A, to be honest. He's been really top of the class at Alpine. Not saying a lot, but he's very much been top of the class at Alpine. Colapinto and Doohan, both been disappointing in my opinion. I did expect more from Colapinto. I expect a little bit more from Doohan as well. Doohan was not given that much of a chance to impress, but you can't say he was good. It wasn't a particularly good 6-race stint for him at the start of this season. And Colapinto, since then, his 6 races, not really been that much better. So overall, disappointing for them. Very much a lot to improve from the standpoint of the second drivers, but the first drivers are doing fine, but the team is an absolute mess. Next up, let's talk about Haas. Haas have been on a decline as well this season, it's fair to say. Last season, they were 7th in the Constructors. Right now, after 12 rounds this season, they have slumped down to 9th. Now, that has only happened at Silverstone. 2 teams did leapfrog them after the last race, but it's been a good start to the season at the very start for them. But since then, you know, the second quarter of the season, if you will, they've been very inconsistent. Ocon early on was very solid, scoring points pretty regularly, and still, to be fair, has been every now and again, but the overall performance of the team has definitely declined. Ollie Behrman got out of the traps really quickly. That drive in China, for example, was seriously impressive, as was his performance as well in Bahrain, but since then, he's been very inconsistent, and I get it, he's a rookie, he's young, he's inexperienced, you've got to give him time, but to do 2 major errors during red flag sessions in free practice, that has been very, very bad for him. I mean, the one in Monaco, obviously overtaken under red flags, 10-place grid penalty for that. Fool me once, shame on you. But at the British Grand Prix, crashing into the pit lane under red flags and getting himself a 10th-place penalty for that. Very much shame on him, and it ruined any chance he had of a good performance on Sunday. He would have qualified 8th if it wasn't for that. He started in 18th. These errors are very, very important. I think the overall pace of Behrman has been decent, but I really have to mark him down because of those rookie errors. You can be very smart at school and getting good grades overall, but if your attendance is bad, if your attitude is bad, that is going to hurt your overall rating overall when it comes to parents, even to put it into a classroom setting there. So overall, Ocon, I'd say, has done better than what I expected him to, but my standards for Esteban Ocon were very low. But overall, it's been a bit disappointing for Haas and their drivers. I've given the team a D. Maybe a little harsh, but I would say overall they should be really worried. I mean, I made a video about the other day saying they should be very concerned after the British Grand Prix, one of only 2 teams not to score any points that weekend. Ocon, as the more experienced driver, is doing what he should be doing. He is getting in the points pretty regularly, so I'd say he's on par. He's doing all right. He's getting a pass mark of a C. But Behrman, maybe a little harsh again. But overall, I don't factor in the rookie factor with this, I don't say, oh, they're a rookie, so they should be getting a better grade because of that. I rank them purely on performance, and overall, he is well behind Ocon in the standings. He's making some really critical errors. So for me, Behrman, a little disappointing overall. Flashes of brilliance, yes, but a little bit disappointing, especially as the season's gone on. He very much needs to improve, as do Haas. After the first half of the season, Aston Martin are in 8th place in the Constructors' Championship, which is a serious downturn on their overall performance from 2024, although it is very much a continuation of their form from the back end of 2024, where Fernando Alonso, their lead driver, said that they were basically the 9th fastest team on the grid, and it's hard to disagree with that. Still, though, we were expecting improvements in performance for Aston Martin, and to see them down in 8th has to go down as a bad mark for them. Although recently their form has been picking up, so I can see them potentially getting up to a C grade by the end of the season. For my money, though, they would have to get up to at least 6th place in the Constructors' Championship to do that, and 8th right now does mean that overall they are disappointing. Alonso's season has been disappointing, but it's not always been his own fault. Obviously, in Monaco, he had an engine failure, and he's been very unlucky at times during this season. I really feel for the guy. You look at the standings overall, and Lance Stroll is actually ahead of him. However, Lance Stroll has been making some incredibly dumb errors at times, albeit there have been some good drives. At Silverstone, he was very impressive, although he did taper off towards the end. And he also got some big point scores earlier on in the season, most notably at Australia. He's very good in damp and tricky and difficult conditions, but for the most part, Formula One is, of course, run in the dry, and he absolutely flounders like that. I'm still not convinced the guy is 100% yet with his wrist, but, they say he is, and he's also competed every race since Canada, since he missed that one, obviously, in Spain. So, we got to take the word for it, but overall, it's very hard for me to give Lance Stroll a good mark. I can't look away from his rookie errors from a man who is in his 8th, 9th season of Formula One racing. He's the most experienced Canadian driver in F1 history. I expect better from him. Alonso has been desperately unlucky at times. I also can't give him too good of a grade because there's not been that many good point scores there, but it's hard to kind of gauge Aston Martin. Where is their car at? Do you take it at the performance of Alonso, who is over 40 years of age now, but a previous race winner, a previous champion, or do you take it at the kind of benchmark of Lance Stroll, who is universally kind of accepted to be the worst driver on the grid? It's very difficult. Overall, Aston Martin have disappointed me. Down in 7th place, it's not a surprise. I'll be honest, I did expect them to be down there, but to see them down in 8th place overall in the Constructors' standings from 5th last year has to be disappointing. It really has to be. With the resources they have, maybe you just put them as an E, perhaps. Been that bad overall. Alonso, I'm going middle of the road. I'm passing him. I can't give him a D grade because he's been unlucky at times, but he's not been his usual spectacular self either. So I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how he gets on in the second half of the season. Same with Stroll. Maybe he can rescue it. If he keeps this kind of form going, if he beats Alonso overall over an entire season, then I'll give him a C maybe. That'll be a controversial one, I'm sure. I'm sure some people are going to be, howling about anti-Canadian bias here, but That's just my thoughts on it, guys. Get yours in the comments below if you disagree, or if you agree by some miracle. So, the Racing Bulls, they've had a pretty decent start to this season overall. They've come up from 8th place last season to be 7th place at the time of recording after the British Grand Prix, on the coattails of Sauber. We came into this season thinking that Racing Bulls were going to have a very solid car, and it's delivered for the most part. There have been some races where they've looked fairly anonymous, but overall they've been a solid midfield runner, which for the Red Bull Racing second team, I would very much expect from them. Their driver lineup has changed. They have had 3 drivers throughout this season, but I won't be grading Yuki Tsunoda here. I'll be grading him in the Red Bull grades because he's done the majority of this season for them. So we're talking about Liam Lawson and Isaac Hadjar. Hadjar had a very difficult start to the season, it's fair to say, not even starting at the Australian Grand Prix and widely being criticised by certain figures such as Dr. Helmut Marko. However, after that, he very much dusted himself off and has improved since then. He's had some excellent performances in that Racing Bull car and comfortably beating Liam Lawson, who has been his teammate for the majority of this season so far, relatively comfortably. He's been really impressive. There have been some moments, obviously, with Hadjar been a bit erratic here and there. I mean, you might criticise his retirement at the British Grand Prix, but if you look at the onboard, the man could see about as much as Stevie Wonder going into that corner. The spray was so bad. Lawson, I mean, I feel like I'm being harsh on the guy when you see my grade on him, but you have to look at it from the perspective of his teammate not being as experienced as him, and he is resoundingly beating him so far this season. So Lawson's not going to get a good grade because of that. There have been flashes of brilliance here and there. There have been some good performances from Lawson, but it's been a lot more inconsistent than what Hadjar has been overall, and you can't say he's been impressive overall, has Lawson. He does have some points on the board now, of course, after his very troubled start to the season with Red Bull Racing, but overall I would say he's been a bit disappointing. But Racing Bulls and Hadjar, I'd say they've been above average. They both get a B grade from me. I mean, I'm marginal with Racing Bulls. You might say only 1 place better than last season. Is that really worthy of a B? But they're very close to Sauber. And given Sauber's, I believe, lack of performance in that car for the most part, I would expect the Racing Bulls to catch them. And they're very much favourites to get 6th, if not 5th at this point, with how much Williams are struggling too. Lawson has been disappointing. If he doesn't pick himself up in the second half of the season, I'll probably have to give him an E grade. Right now, I'm going with a D grade just because I think there is time for it to improve. With Hadjar, he's been above average, he's been really impressive. You could make a case for him being the best rookie this season. Well, there are a few notable bits of competition there for that, but overall, Racing Bulls doing good. Lawson needs to improve, but plenty of time to see an improvement there. So Sauber, very much the surprise package of this season. Who would have predicted they'd be up in 6th place in the Constructors' Championship and have a podium to their name? Who would have predicted that Nico Hülkenberg would have got a podium to his name this season? It's been absolutely crackers so far this season for Sauber, but in the best possible sense. They started out being relatively anonymous for the most part. Obviously, in the opening round at Australia, Hülkenberg got a very solid points finish. And the thing is, right, a lot of people might say, well, you're going to give a big grade to Sauber here just because of that one performance in the British Grand Prix. But no, I'm not. Hülkenberg has scored solid points at a number of Grand Prix this season so far. Obviously, most notably at the British Grand Prix, but also as well the Australian Grand Prix, the Spanish Grand Prix, the Austrian Grand Prix where he came from the back of the grid. And yes, the talents of the driver definitely make that car look better than what it is, but they're also optimizing their package, as we say. They are the Alpine, effectively. These two teams, Alpine and Sauber, they should be at opposite ends. They should be swapping places. Alpine should be 6th and Sauber should be 10th if you went on the pure performance of their car. I could definitely make a case for that, but the difference is Alpine are squandering their opportunities, whereas Sauber, they are making the most of theirs, and they're doing so incredibly. Bortoleto has had a troubled start to the season. If he hadn't scored any points by this point, I may have given him a slightly lower grade because of that. But overall, Gabby has been pretty good, I think. It's just the performance of that car is not the best. He does struggle in wet conditions. He crashed out of both the Silverstone and Albert Park rounds of the season so far. So overall, I think Bortoleto, for a rookie, has been about par, really. But when it comes to the performances of Sauber and Hülkenberg, I can't give him anything less than an A. I'm tempted to give him an A star. I feel like it's a bit early for that. If Hülkenberg continues his point scoring performances and Sauber continue to be up in 6th place in the Constructors' Championship, I may well give them an A star by the end of the season. I definitely think that's a possibility. Right now, maybe a little early to call, But I think overall they've been absolutely sensational. You can make a case for Hülkenberg being one of the best drivers of the season. I think Sauber, without a doubt, are the biggest overperforming surprise of this season, without a doubt. There's no team that's done as well as them compared to the expectations of them, really. So I really do have to rate them very, very highly there indeed. They've been super impressive. And I think Bortoleto as well, I think he'll really kick on in the second half of the season as he gets more used to the team and Formula One as a whole. We're into the top half of the Constructors' Championship now with Williams. They had an electric start to the season, it's fair to say. Alex Albon almost getting a podium at the opening round in Australia. Sainz has had a bit more of an inconsistent time. Sometimes it's been the car, sometimes it's been him making mistakes. For the most part, though, the car really has let him down at a number of key points during this season. He's quite far down in the Drivers' Championship, but for the most part, it's been the car that's been letting him down rather than the driver. He has had some very unlucky moments this season so far. I do think he will improve, though, as the season goes on. I don't have much doubt about that. Overall, though, he's still getting used to the car, and Alex Albon very much has outperformed his more experienced Spanish teammates so far this season, although I do think they are both excellent driver pairings. If you did ask me after about 6-7 rounds what I would grade Williams so far this season, I probably would have given them an A. To see them vault all the way up from, what was it last season? I think they were 8th overall in the Constructors. You know, to see Williams vault all the way from 9th in the Constructors' Championship last season, a very peaky and difficult car to drive, to 5th place this season, and being very solid in that position relatively before the last few rounds of the season so far. You know, I'd have given them an A grade. Genuinely, I think they would have definitely been there. To see you go up 4 places, I mean, that mirrors what Sauber have done. They've gone from 10th to 6th. Williams have gone from 9th to 5th. However, the performance has been a bit disappointing. There's been some operational mistakes here and there, and there's definitely a few things that they can brush up on. And with James Vowles now in it for the long term, he's signed on the contract for a very long time with Williams, which I think is probably the most important sign of the lot for them. I think they will continue to progress, and I think they will still finish in 5th overall in the championship, but they will be sweating. They will be sweating. If Sauber get a few more podiums, they are going to be right up there with them. So overall, Williams, above average, what I expect. They're on the border of an A, but I'm going to give them a B. They need to show some improvement in the second half of the season. Sainz maybe a bit harsh with a C, but overall he's not been as good as Albon despite being more experienced, and in general people rate him a little bit more highly, although of course Albon was the incumbent driver before this season. Albon, I think B. He's had some real standout performances in that car and he's been very solid overall. So yeah, Williams I expect to get better as the season goes on, but we'll have to see what happens with that, guys, as always. Right, Red Bull Racing. After this week's news, we've got a lot to talk about when it comes to them, and do check out my videos going over Christian Horner and all the scandal and saga going on around that guy. But let's just focus on how the performance of Red Bull has been so far in 2025. It has to go down as disappointing. Let's be real here, guys. The performance of that car is not what it was last season. I mean, it was on a downturn last season for sure towards the back end of it, but I feel like it's drifted even further back since then. Even Max Verstappen, some rounds this season, he's really struggled despite having quite a bit of pace in that car at times. I mean, he got pole position at Silverstone, for example, ended up in 5th because of a mistake. They're just running that car on the absolute edge. There have been some flashes of brilliance for sure. His pole position laps, I think he's got the joint most pole positions so far this season, but that's down to the driver. That's not down to the car. That car overall has to be down as a disappointment. It's definitely a downgrade on what they had last season, and you compare their position even this season compared to last. They finished 3rd in Constructors last season, of course. This season they're down in 4th, and there's already a big gap forming between themselves and Ferrari and Mercedes in 2nd and 3rd respectively. So overall, Red Bull disappointing. Verstappen sensational at times. Tsunoda. Now, I'm not going to talk about Lawson. I've already spoke about him in the RB video because, you know, he's just done most of the season with RB. Tsunoda had the opening 2 rounds of this season driving for the Racing Bulls. Now he's in the senior team at Red Bull, and it has been tricky to say the least. And it's very hard to grade him because, again, the car is so on edge. It doesn't suit him. It doesn't suit anybody not called Max Verstappen or Franz Hermann. They're the only 2 guys that seem to be able to get on top of it. Sorry, I had to get a Franz Hermann joke in there at some point, of course. You can't say he's not been disappointing, though. He's been really bad overall, and a lot of people would give him an F grade. A lot of people would give him an E grade. For me, I've got some sympathy with him. I've hoped that things will improve as the season goes on. but we'll see. He may well get an E or an F later on the season, at the end of the season. For now, I'm giving him a D, the same grade as the Red Bull team themselves. They've been disappointing. You might even give them both an E. You might even give them both an F. But the fact that Verstappen has still managed to win some races show that there is some pace in that car. There is. It's just so hard to unlock it and keep it consistent. Verstappen, I've given an A. Honestly, if it wasn't for some silly mistakes like what he did at the Spanish Grand Prix, I'd give him an A star. That was a really, really embarrassing moment for him, and it cost his team a lot of points. I don't think it's going to cost them in the Constructors. They're still going to finish in 4th. If Verstappen can pull out some more incredible performances in the second half of the season, I might give him an A star, but for me now, it's just an A. I know some people will be annoyed at that grade, but A is still very, very good. Let's not confuse that. Now it's time to talk about Mercedes. Mercedes, now I was going to give them quite a good grade. I've looked into their stats though from last season. We had the same amount of rounds last season as we do this, 24 overall, and although Mercedes have improved from 4th place in the Constructors to 3rd this year, their overall points has actually declined a little bit. Now, there have been some flashes of brilliance for that Mercedes car, a double podium in Canada being the most notable result, but there have been times when it has looked incredibly bang average. It is not a particularly great car. Would I say it's much better than last season? I'm on the fence, honestly. I think they need to get some more wins to show that they are a better team than last season. Last season, did they get 4 victories overall? Are they going to get 4 victories this season? They've only got 1 to their name so far. And Antonelli getting a win in his debut season, it's a big ask. Not impossible, but it's a big ask. And one of the big concerns as well for Mercedes has been the reliability, or lack thereof in this case. 2 retirements for Kimi Antonelli in that triple header between Spain, Monaco and Imola. Very, very worrying. Very, very worrying. And that's really going to hurt them as the season goes on. They've ended the second quarter of this season, if you will, on a bit of a high overall. I mean, they're winning Canada. They look pretty solid in places like Austria as well, but not spectacular. And Silverstone was a terrible round for him. It really, really was. Russell looked bang average there. Although saying that, Russell has had an excellent season. He's not that far off Max Verstappen in the championship, which even in a dog of a Red Bull, I think that's really impressive to be that close to him and to get a victory as well after dominating the Canadian Grand Prix. Who would have seen that coming before the race actually started? I didn't see it coming. No way. Even after qualifying, I thought it was pretty unlikely. But Russell overall has been very impressive. Some performances stop him getting the very, very top grade of an A star in my opinion. But if he keeps it going, if he gets 3rd in the Drivers' Championship overall, I'd probably give him an A star at the end of the season. Will it be enough to keep his seat for next year though? That's the big question. Maybe he'll be replaced by Max Verstappen. If you believe the rumours, we'll see what happens there. Kimi Antonelli though, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, he has been so impressive. Some people coming into this season were saying that he's too young, he's too inexperienced, he can't handle a Formula 1 car. It's just a vanity project by Toto Wolff. We covered those stories extensively here on the channel as always, guys. Overall, I thought he was ready. I thought he showed real flashes of brilliance and he's going to have good weekends and bad weekends. And that has basically run true. I would say that most of his weekends have been good weekends though. He's seriously impressed, and he also became one of the youngest podium standers in Formula 1 history and also the youngest driver to ever lead a Formula 1 racing lap and also set a fastest lap, I do believe, at the Japanese Grand Prix. I could be wrong with that. I remember I covered it at the time. He broke some record in Japan anyway, only his 3rd race of the season. Very, very impressive. So overall, I'm giving Antonelli a B grade. I'd say he's been definitely one of the best rookies, if not the best rookie so far this season. It's pretty much neck and neck between him and Isaac Hadjar. Russell has been very impressive. He gets an A grade. Mercedes overall, they've been about where we kind of expect them to be. They need to keep improving. They need to get some more wins under the belt. If they get 2nd in the Constructors, they'll probably get a B grade from me, but they are a long, long way behind that pesky team in Papaya that they supply our engines to. Scuderia Ferrari is up next, the oldest and most prestigious team in Formula 1 history. How have they got on this season? Their quest for a first championship of any description got very close to being completed last season when they were neck and neck with McLaren in the Constructors' Championship going into the final round. And they had a lot of very impressive performances last season at times for sure, and they could have won the Constructors quite comfortably in the end, but obviously it wasn't meant to be. This season though, they are miles behind McLaren, and it is very hard to say that it's been a good season for them. You ask their drivers, you ask the team principal Frederic Vasseur, they will all say they have been below par, they have been disappointing, and it's not quite gone to plan. So on that vein, they're not getting a great grade from me. But what about the performance of their drivers? Well, it's been a bit erratic to say the very least, and there is definitely a case to say that Lewis Hamilton has been disappointing in his first season so far at Ferrari. Although there have been some flashes of brilliance here and there, and he has been picking up things a little bit more as the season has gone on. He obviously won the sprint in China. That gave us a kind of false dawn, really, if anything else. But he's not had a podium yet. We've come very close at Silverstone, of course, but not had a podium yet in a Grand Prix for Ferrari. 2 sprint podiums, a sprint victory included in that as well, but no Grand Prix podiums yet. Leclerc has managed to get a podium. He managed to do it in Saudi Arabia. And I think overall, to beat Hamilton relatively convincingly so far in the first half of the season, that has to earn him some kudos from me. That has to earn him some good marks, in my opinion. But he's got a lot of work still to do if he's to keep up getting a good grade at the end of the season when I do my full season grades at the end of the campaign after Abu Dhabi. So overall, I would say that Ferrari, you can't say that they haven't been disappointing. I'm giving him a D grade for that. It might be a little harsh, but you got to look at the fact that they were so close to getting the Constructors last season. They were right behind McLaren. Now they have like half the points of McLaren. You have to say it's been disappointing overall. You can't say it's been great. Maybe I'm being a little generous to their drivers, Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, but when you've got 2 drivers of the quality of them and they are both struggling, it's the car that's the problem. I don't think it's them. Hamilton has made some mistakes for sure, and maybe giving him a C grade is a little generous, but he's got work to do, just like Ferrari. They've all got work to do. All 3 of them. The team and both of their drivers have a lot of work to do to be able to keep up these grades and improve them throughout the season, because if they continue this form for the rest of the campaign, they're all going to lose a couple marks for sure. The one you've all been waiting for, top of the tree this season by a long way, is McLaren. My goodness me, have they kicked on. In qualifying, they are quick, but in race trim, it has become a regular occurrence for both Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri to gap the entire field behind them by at least 30 seconds, around half a lap around some circuits. It has been unbelievable. I expected McLaren to be good this season, I will be honest, but my goodness me, they have been the absolute dominant force this campaign so far. Even when they're not winning, they're on the podium. That one in Canada was the only one this season, which is the blot on their copybook. But, you know, sometimes you just don't have pace around certain circuits. Even the most dominant cars in Formula One history have struggled around certain circuits. Mercedes, they struggled for years around Singapore, even when they were absolutely on it like a car bonnet. Same with Red Bull. The one race they didn't win in 2023 was in Singapore. Their Achilles heels, for some reason, McLaren has been Canada. Don't know, can't explain it, but it happens. Nobody's perfect. 24 races in a season, you're going to slip up or you're going to have struggles relatively at some point. You design a car that is meant to be good around every single track, and it will have somewhere it's not particularly great. The only one we've found so far has been Canada. Every other race, they've been incredibly good. They have been so impressive, have McLaren. Their start to the season, they've already broken some records, and they're only halfway through the season. The amount of podiums they've been getting, the amount of victories they've been getting, this is going to go down as one of the most dominant seasons in McLaren's history, and maybe Formula One history as well. Their pace in qualifying is good, don't get me wrong, but Max Verstappen has the same amount of poles as anybody else, if not more. You know, he's been really quick in qualifying, but it's the race where they're so impressive. They're 2 drivers as well, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. I mean, Piastri has, this is his 3rd season in Formula One. Lest we forget, he's so inexperienced, but he's already got himself to the top of the championship. Lando Norris, he's had his ups and downs in places. He's made some mistakes here and there, but, you know, he's ending on a real high going into this little break we are right now. Back-to-back victories, and he's only just behind Oscar Piastri. I believe the gap is only 8 points in the championship, so there is not a lot between them. There is not a lot between them at all, really, at this point. So overall, they have both been very impressive, and I know some people will want to grade down Piastri, grade down Norris, probably give a worse grade than what I am going to give McLaren here, but for me, they are top of the class. McLaren are so far clear. They almost have double, I think they have over double the points of Ferrari in second. As a team, operationally, perfect. Absolutely perfect. I know they've made some little strategy errors like in Japan and stuff like that, but you're never going to be perfect all the time. They are dominating this championship, and from a team's point of view, they will win the Constructors No doubt whatsoever. It's been wrapped up since about round 6 at this point. Piastri and Norris both have made mistakes. Both have had some errors here and there. Norris in qualifying most notably. Piastri with the odd error here and there, of course, most notably at the British Grand Prix last time out. You can debate about the penalty and the severity of it, but he still made a mistake. So they've not been perfect, but whichever one of these two, because it's going to be one of these two that wins the championship, is going to get an A star, and the other one will probably get at least an A. It's going to be neck and neck. It's going to be a very exciting season, and as a McLaren fan, I'm absolutely loving it. So for me, they are getting top of the class. The only A star grade in this entire ranking goes to the team of McLaren. No driver's got it, not even Verstappen. No other team has got it. Not even the very impressive Sauber. McLaren, though, you got to give them an A star. They have been so good so far this season. And I see no reason why that's not going to continue throughout the rest of the campaign. There we go, guys. We've got to the end. I can take this thing off now. Actually, this was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I thought I was really going to struggle with how hot it is right now in the UK. But it is thankfully only, in inverted commas, I don't know if you can see that, only 27 degrees Celsius in here. It's basically subarctic conditions compared to outside. It's over 30 there. I'm actually glad that I managed to find, just a little side note for you guys. Love a tangent here on the channel, don't we? I was struggling to find my actual cap. I don't know, I didn't know where it was for the most part. I was really I found the gown straight away. It's hung up in my wardrobe, but I couldn't find the cap for ages. I'm just like, what am I going to do? And then I found this. It's an old school F1 cap from back in the day. I was thinking I could maybe wear this instead. I don't even know if it fits, to be honest. It barely does around my big head. There we go. That was a little snap. I hope it's not broken, but yeah, I was going to wear this maybe instead. It's not quite the same really as a proper cap and gown, but hey, it's not too bad. It's not too shabby. The old school F1 logo on there from back in the day. Got this from Monaco when I went there years and years ago. But yeah, you know, it's a lot of fun doing these longer videos. I really enjoy doing them. I hope you've enjoyed them as well, guys. Leave a like if you liked it. Comment below which grades do you agree with, which grades do you disagree with. You know, we're all up for opinions here at the end of the day, guys. You are not going to agree with all the ones I've done, but that's Formula One. We love talking about it. We love debating it. I certainly do. I've got a YouTube channel where I talk about it all the time, so naturally that's going to happen. But yeah, hope you have a fantastic day wherever in the world today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this first half of the season. We got plenty more long form content to keep us going through this little mini break we're having right now in Formula One. Got some longer form videos. I'm hopefully going to get the Spygate one. I know it's like the Titanic meme, isn't it? It's been 84 years, you know. I will do it, I promise, but there's been some bigger news announcements in the last few weeks or so, most notably Christian Horner, so that's made it a little bit difficult, but hopefully this weekend. But yeah, very soon, if not then. But yeah, have a great day, guys. I will be clipping this up as well. I will be putting all the teams out individually, and I also got this Super Cup, which you are watching right now, so thank you so much for your support. Cannot thank you enough, guys. Have a great time, and we'll see you very soon for some more Formula One action here on the channel as always.